All right, so this is the Drupal usability meeting for October 24th, 2017. And I think so far we collected 2 topics ahead of the meeting. To look at the user interface standards page on Drupal.org and to review the stability or the showing the media module criteria rather from the Drupal.org queue. So I think we should start with the Drupal.org docs page first.
Okay, yeah. Let me just share my screen. Well, sorry. So if you look on drupal.org/docs/develop/user interface standards, we have the documentation for user interface standards. And I worked on that a bit in Vienna to see what's actually in there. And the first thing I found is that with the changes on D.O, it's not possible anymore to actually put a hierarchy in the documentation pages. So we end up with a long page of things like form elements, button, radio buttons, tabs, field sets, interface text. So it's become a very unyieldable page, which I think is problematic. Because it's not possible to, for example, say, okay, here's form elements and underneath it is all the ones like buttons and radio buttons and select lists. So I discussed that with Roy at the sprints in Vienna. And we decided to actually put things again together on longer pages, like form elements. I did a bit of work on, with then a table of content on that page, similar to how the page for coding standards is done. So that you have everything like radio buttons and checkboxes and their reasons for them together in one page. That at least makes it something that module developers can actually look at, instead of clicking through some 20 or 30 individual pages. There's a bit more work in that, but so that still wants doing. But what I also found is there's lots of things that actually aren't documented at all. And I'm not sure how best to go about that. Because I think there's lots of decisions that have been taken, so it would require going through the issues and finding out what the reasons were for why are things done like that. So that's my short overview. Alternatively, we can just say we don't have any UI standards, but I think that's a bit problematic.
Yeah. Hi, folks. Sorry. Yeah, I was also thinking about maybe having a look at these pages.
I mean, there's some good things in there. Like I found we actually have a UI standard for when to use vertical tabs. And that's for stuff where there's good defaults and stuff that users aren't actually expected to click on.
Right.
So it would be good if we can actually use those standards. But yeah, for the rest, there's just lots of stuff that isn't documented.
There is. I was having a look at these pages earlier today. I guess eventually we might want to add images to them to show what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So that would be an interesting task. And I think that we also do have to, but maybe you've pointed that out, that we have to do some cleanup in the actual pages because we're collecting more stuff on a single page. Because now we have this form elements page. There's radio buttons in the anchor list in the content area. But I'm also still seeing the radio buttons link in the right-hand navigation.
Yeah, that would be the other question. I think I've taken out everything from those pages.
Right.
And I'm not sure whether we can unpublish them. There's no real good way of saying we keep them visible, because we already have some 20 or so links on this page.
Right. Yeah.
But at least we can move them to the very bottom of the page.
Yeah, so there's the thing of having these standards and making them, documenting more and better, and then there's the question of how to get people to use them, right?
Yeah. And at the moment, I think with all these individual little pages, it's not usable because you have to click to lots of them.
Right. Yeah, that's what we Anja and I sat together in Vienna. Because there's no nested navigation in the docs, there's no second level navigation or third, etc. We figured we'd better put more related elements on a single page. So as you see here, where we have one form elements page that has a anchored list that jumps to different sections on the same page instead of having individual pages for drop button, radio button, checkbox. Instead, we would collect those all on the same page. And eventually then look into either unpublishing or, yeah, I guess unpublishing those individual pages. As the way we discussed it in Vienna, that seemed like the most practical way of using the limited structuring navigation options we have inside the docs system.
Yeah, ideally, I think if we can bring it down to 6 or maybe 8 pages.
Yes.
That then collect the things. That's still kind of possible to see in the 2 columns on the page.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think anything after that becomes really difficult to access.
Yeah. I'm actually working on a client project. It's not even Drupal, but we're working on basically on a design system. So with components, where the components are similar to here, individual form elements are components, and we identified a couple of high-level entry points for these guidelines. So there would be the individual, the component documentation. That's the stuff we're looking at here. But there's also the more meta patterns of, okay, and how do you combine those individual elements to make different kinds of pages, right? This is how a listing page works. This is how a page with many settings would work. This is how where vertical tabs should be on the page if you use them. So more like archetypical structures for a whole admin page.
Yeah.
That would be an entry point. Ideally, we have a 7 style guide visually, right, for typography, colors, margins, paddings, etc. That lives on groups.drupal.org.
Right.
It's not in here. That would
so
ideally
we should have
also
something like that for 8 as well.
Right. It's not that useful to maybe well. Depends on what we're going to do for Drupal 8, theming-wise for the admin. But I would expect to find that documentation here as well. And we already have a bit on copywriting, right? Do's and don'ts.
Yeah, that's the user interface text.
Yeah.
Yeah, interface text. Yeah. I can continue kind of combining this into a few bigger pages.
Yeah.
And then we have to see how we can write define the additional areas and how to write the text for that.
Yeah.
Because it's a bit difficult to just say, oh, I write it up as I think it is.
Yeah. I'm thinking maybe I want to throw out a blog post identifying this as a good community project that people can join if they want.
Yeah.
Because I can imagine you're not super comfortable just defining or coming up with definitions.
I could just define them, but I'm not sure I can then convince everybody to believe that my view is the only true one. So, but I can clean this up first further, so that it's that's a bit more space to think properly.
Yes, I think that makes total sense. Collecting related elements on single larger pages.
Okay, then I'll continue on that a bit.
Okay, excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Keep us posted.
I will.
Did we celebrate the migrate critical that got committed today, where we reused a new design pattern from the status page, status report page?
No.
No, we did not.
Do we have a picture?
Yeah, can you show that?
Yes, I think so. Let's see. Screen. Wait, let's share the small screen. So there was this migrate UI critical issue where if you run a upgrade process, so you have your new Drupal 8 clean install, where you basically want to migrate the content from your Drupal 6 or 7 site into the migrate process will do a scan basically of what's in your site and then report back on whether it found, well, basically ways to import that content. So this was the before state. It had an interesting title of "Are you sure?" It is a upgrade analysis report. Well, okay, which tells us that there's 19 available upgrade paths and 27 missing upgrade paths. We start with the missing ones, because those might be the ones that you want to do something about. It's a list of things, and then there's a second list of things, and that's the stuff that your Drupal 8 site has a destination for. So you have blocks in your old site, yeah, that's fine. Come on over. We have blocks in Drupal 8 as well. Your DB log, yeah, we have a place for your DB log, etc. So these are all okay, right? You shouldn't have to worry about those. That's why they're at the bottom of the list. When I saw these two summary bits, 19 available upgrade paths and 27 missing upgrade paths, I figured that looks like the summary items we have on the new status report page, where we identify 2 errors, 2 warnings, 15 checks, for example, and we have a similar pattern of showing this is in a list. This is these are the errors, these are the warnings, and this is the stuff that's fine. So I suggested we look into reusing at least those larger icons in those summaries. We worked a bit on it in Vienna. We mocked and we created a more specific mockup, like that, where you would see this stuff is missing, this is there. So we're reusing a new, but yeah, existing pattern. Starshaped worked on it in Vienna, wanting to pick it up after, and then Maxo Cup jumped in and said, yeah, I want to get this critical done. And he basically started a couple of days ago writing a near to perfect patch. And in just a couple of days, we got this committed. So XGM committed it early today. So nice usability and design win here, reusing a new pattern on a similar page. Makes sense, right? So I think this triangle is not what we eventually went for, right? It would repeat the same icon we
Nice.
see.
Also nice that you fix.
Sorry.
Also nice that you fixed the title along the way.
Yes, that was
one of my
the
pain
main
points
ones.
as well.
Exactly.
Good,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. Are you sure? I'm not sure about this page. No, thank you. But that went relatively easy. We had a good design spec. We made some more smaller decisions, right? And then Mexico really went with it and provided us with a great patch with only a couple of nits, and then it got committed. So well done there. One less migrate critical, which is still #1 on our roadmap. So well done there. I like that we could do some good design work on that part of the UI as well. So just wanted to highlight those. That's good stuff.
So could you write a UI standards page that kind of picks that up?
Yeah, yeah, it should go. I could, but let's start with putting it on the list of and available as a pattern that we have available for.
As a pattern for report pages, certainly, yeah.
Yeah, for a quick status overview.
Mm-hmm.
So that's that.
That's great. Cool. It's great that it's now in, especially that it's not now that we have that pattern and we worked on that pattern for quite a long time and we got that in. Now we can reuse that quickly on a different page. It's cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So the other major thing that was suggested for today was to review the media issues that block the module from being shown, which are several UX issues.
Makes sense to me.
So Angie, do you want to take that topic?
Sorry, which topic?
The media requirements to being shown on the UI.
I can talk about it loosely, but I don't know any. I prefer to not take that topic. I was thinking I would participate in that topic, but I was thinking you were going to demo what it currently does, and then we can look at the list together and figure out if that's.
We can
start just briefly. So there's an issue at. Sorry, I was not thinking I was reading this. I'm not ready at all. Where did it go? So it's issue 282-5215. I'll link it in the sidebar here. And this is real. This is kind of the overarching roadmap, not the overarching roadmap. This initiative has like 30 roadmaps, but anyway, this is the one about kind of getting the basics in core. There's a roadmap, and there's a bunch of linked issues there. But the part that purposes of this discussion is if you go to stub follow-up roadmap, about midway through the thing, here's a link directly to it. Itemized list of issues that are listed as must-have. So we have a must-have before 8.4.0 Alpha 1. We did all those, and that's why media shipped. Oh, which is lovely. However, it shipped in 8.4.0 invisible in the user interface. We hid it by default. And the reason we hid it by default is because it is present with file and image modules. It creates a very confusing and conflicting user experience. Until and unless those user experience issues are addressed, they don't want media module to be something users can turn on by themselves. It can only be by a contributed module that they're using. Ideally, we would like not to have 2 or 3 different different ways of handling media in core. We would like to only have the one, in this weird transitory state where we're not quite there yet. So there is a metric bucket load of issues listed under there. So there's a list titled preferred before 8.4 and required before the module is shown in the UI. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I guess, or 9 maybe. A few of those did get done, but a lot of them are not done yet. Some of them haven't been touched in a while, pulling on others and so on. And then since obviously we shipped 8.4 and the ones that aren't done, plus in addition to that below, there's required before the module is shown in the UI, not qualified by a certain release timeline. And that's an additional 12 issues after that. So my proposal was we look at this list and figure out if indeed we as the usability team agree these is a requirement, or if there's any of these that we could push down to a should have, because otherwise it kind of feels like we're not going to get actual media functionality in core for at least 2 or 3 releases. I think that's a pile of work. So yeah, that was my proposal. I haven't actually played around with media recently, so I don't feel qualified to like lead the discussion, but I was hoping maybe someone on this call would.
Yeah, I think so. If we try to focus on the feature parity question of reproducing what's already there, then also even requiring a experimental module to exist to show a stable module sounds a bit strange to me. So that's for the media library thing that's in the second list.
Yeah, I mean, the reason that was done is because originally when the product management team was consulted on this, we did not want this initiative to go the way many other initiatives go, which is you build and then later on, you know, months or years down the road, focus on the user-facing component. Said that this is all part and parcel, that media API plus media library plus WYSIWYG integration was the baseline and MVP. That obviously shipped, sailed, and went. So we did ship 8.4 without any user-facing functionality.
Yeah.
Or worse. That's what we got, and we'd rather take stuff we actually have than stuff we don't have, you know. But the downside of that is that, you know, we're exactly where we thought we kind of feared we would be if we went that way, which is we got an API in there, and the path to getting it user-facing is unclear. It might be that we want the user-facing component to be less about the media library, which is a new functionality, and more about just replicating what we already have in file and image module. That might be a way to change the goalposts, but still accomplish what the product management team was after, which is, you know, bear in mind that end users, until we've proven an API with end user facing functionality, we haven't actually, you know, proven the feature. So that might be one way we could shift the direction and possibly, you know, get rid of some of these in the list. Another one that's confusing to me is, I guess, number 8 in the required before the module is shown through the UI issue says file field design update. We still don't have a great patch. I would love it to be in core. But that sounds more like a, if something ever happened with that, we would need to also, that seems more like a conditional, like we could add that as a must-have later, but it's certainly not a must-have now.
We may even just want to throw it out of this list, right? Because
yeah.
I'm skeptical about people wanting to do this the non-media way, right? Do we want to finish this so that we can redo it later, or do it in the media
last
way?
patch on this issue was 7 months ago now. So
Yeah.
no one worked on it anytime recently. Which is not to say they shouldn't. It's a great patch, but it might make sense to postpone this explicitly until done enough to be visible in the UI.
Right. So are you saying let's postpone this one?
Sorry, you cut out for me. What was that?
Do you propose to postpone this one?
Still cut out. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
It's like, do you cut? Yeah.
Do you propose to postpone that file field?
Yes, that is what I propose. Any objections?
No. It's it's making explicit what's already happening. I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm saying, given we added media to 8.4.0 and it's still not visible to UI until this whack of issues is done. To minimize the amount of change happening in the file image module. Pointing this get rid of it anyway. Sucks though, 'cause it's a great patch, but
It is great, but it's not done. And if it's done for the file field, and then we need to do it for media. That stuff. So I do have a site with media enabled and no other features. So I can share that here.
Yeah.
Let's see.
just media or media and file and image?
Screen share. So this one. There. So what I did is I've added the country module for media, whatever, Instagram. It doesn't really matter. So you need a module to enable media. We're not going to use Instagram because it's not in core. It doesn't matter. But now that I have it, the Instagram module that basically enables the media module, which obviously exposes media types. And now we ship with 2 media types, file and image. These are shipped with the media module in 8.4, and they ship with the standard profile in 8.5, which is a minor difference. Doesn't really matter if you install the standard profile either way. So you have a file and an image media type. And those are provided by core. So you have the image source and the file source. You don't have the Instagram source, obviously, if you don't have the Instagram module enabled. So you can do files and images. It's great. All right. So you have content and you have media. There's a listing of stuff. So you can add media, image, media, say, fall colors, whatever, and then choose some image. And then upload that. It's a big image. Can get ran over the 2 megabyte limit, but we'll see. Save. Yeah, nice. So probably did run over the 2 megabyte limit. Should find something simpler somewhere. Let's see. Boop. Image. Yeah. So yeah, so you need to provide alternate text. So this is a lot of stuff to get an image on your site. You got the image, it's a media thing. Okay, so now how do I use this media thing? So I have this content media listing that now has my media thing. There's no real way to use my media thing, so I go to, let's say, create article, and try to use my media thing, like, okay, I use my media thing. No way to use my media thing. So maybe image, there's also no way to use my media thing. So, okay, so there's no way. So I go to structure, content types, and then let's add something to article to use my media thing. And that's a reference to media. And it's going to be item of reference, again, a media, one piece of media. And here I can say it's going to be an image media, but not a file media. Save that. So now I have one media thing on articles. So I can create an article. And not use the image button in Sync Editor, but now I have a media thing. So now I only need to remember whether it was an icon something, or it was a Drupal icon, or was it Drupal? What's the name for the media thing? It's now giving me a preview, so I need to remember the title of the image that I'm using, that I'm not seeing that's image. And then I'm saving it, and it's showing a link. How nice. Click the link, and it's an image. Yay!
Link as well.
So that's why we don't show the module. So you can create a media, but there's a lot of baggage on the creation process. You can reuse media, but even creating the way to reuse the media is tedious, and then reusing the media is basically based on the title of the media. And it's not going to giving you any preview or anything. And then displaying the media is a link to the media.
I can just hear Benji to think, what if we set a better default for this particular field?
There's an issue for that, actually, yes.
I was actually wondering if you can change the default display in the article view modes.
Yeah.
I think it's that's one of the issues. Users expect rendered media, not links, and configuring the entity reference display in view mode properly is challenging.
What options do you have if you go to, like, granted, you need to know sci-fi knowledge to know to do this.
Yeah, to go content types, manage fields, is my media thing. I manage display, and then this is my media thing, and
this is the form.
Rendered entities, probably what I can do, or maybe even thumbnail. Let's do thumbnail.
Yeah, and thumbnail has the confusing thing that thumbnail actually just means image.
It's the original image, yeah. If you know
use original,
thumbnail says original image.
That's already strange there. Because thumbnail in this case once means that you want to show it as an image, and the next time it means the image size.
So I want to use a thumbnail. So I want to use a thumbnail as a thumbnail, please.
Yeah, or you can use the 1900 pixel as a thumbnail.
Yeah. A large thumbnail. It's a very large thumb. So
I'm not sure where that naming comes from, but I think we should have an issue for that.
It's the image, yeah. So now I have the article Drupal, and it actually shows the media thing. It shows the label of the media thing, which I can also remove. So that's an issue to default this better. Yes. That's one of the issues.
Under the comment form, though, that was cool. I didn't even know you could do that.
You can, yeah. Why not? Well, it is under comments, so I'll move it up above comments and remove the media thing label. And that's going to be better. So that's one of the issues. Now it's above comments.
All right.
So yay. So that's one of the issues.
Can we
and
now
then there's the
Yeah, we did. Oh, we did. Yeah, we did.
No, we can yes, we can reuse it. If you know the title of the image that you've uploaded, you can reuse it. So another thing is to support this in the CK editor, because you can accidentally click on this, and this will not lead into creating media, obviously. So it'll create something else. So that's a problem. There's no way to. This is not creating media is the first problem, and the second problem is you cannot reuse anything from here. But that's a media library problem space, right? But even creating media is not possible here. So that's the parity with core stuff.
We use anything right now anyway, so.
Yeah. But if this creates files and the other one creates media and we keep it that way, then it's going to be very confusing, I think. May not be, I don't know. Yeah. So then this create file field widget on top of media entity, which was the first on the roadmap.
Yeah.
Let me pull up the roadmap too.
3.
So that was about basically being able to create something in this field. So do you have a widget here that I can actually create something like this when I pick the image and then I can actually pick something, versus this one where I cannot create anything. I can only use what's already created elsewhere. So that's the first issue. And then the image field is the same thing so this was file field and this image field. So this is actually a similar experience for creating media here. So it's hard to argue that's not a requirement, because being only able to reuse what's already available is pretty awkward. It would be definitely a step back from image fields, I would say. And then this upgrade path thing, writing docs, and then contributed modules.
Like whether or not the migration path is an actual requirement, because I guess the reason they want that as a requirement is because otherwise you'd have like this, basically this fork between your site as it used to be and your site as it is now. But I don't think on older sites we would turn on the media module in the upgrade path. We would only enable it for new sites.
Mm-hmm.
A migration path would be a requirement.
I don't think that was a product or a UX requirement. That was a release management requirement. But also, it certainly needs to be some kind of migration path from the contributed module. I think that's important, because otherwise that needs to be maintained, and it's a contributed module hell.
Yeah, but I mean, then again, we made the workflows module stable without worrying about an upgrade path from Workbench moderation or whatever. Like,
yeah, media is also stable. It's just not shown on the UI. So,
well, if the idea is
workflows module is both stable and in the UI, and we did not make a requirement to migration path in it from Workbench.
Yeah.
Do you expect people that have? Do you expect people that have media enabled as a contrib module to migrate from contrib to core then? Is that the migration requirement?
They will eventually need to do that, because there's a whole bunch of contributed modules that are either compatible with the contrib module or the core module, right? So it's issue. So there's this nice table of which if they have a version compatible with the new core branch, the new core version of media. So it's going to be an issue for all of these modules as long as there's no migration path. I don't think that necessitates it being a requirement for showing the module in core, but it will eventually cause a lot of pain. So I think it's a gatekeeping question at best. I don't think it requires.
Is the idea to get rid of the existing image and file fields and replace them with the media field?
Yes.
So then you'd need
them because they ship with Drupal 8, so we'd leave them there, that we would mark them as deprecated. So we maybe do the same type of thing we did in Drupal 7 when we deprecated the profile module, which is but hide it from the UI so new people don't turn them on. But if you already have
so the
them,
new installs won't get this regular original file field on articles anymore.
But that sounds to me like you'd want a migration paths to convert people's existing image fields into the new media field.
You definitely
Yeah, eventually,
want a
yes.
Yes, it's a question of, do we have to have the migration path prior to exposing the module and enabling it by default in a standard profile? To me, those are two completely different questions. And I don't understand why, or at least if we're going to force migration paths, we should do it consistently. Force it for media, we should force it for content moderation and workflows as well. And you know what I mean? On and on. We've never done that before. So it's confusing to me why this is a special situation.
Yeah, I don't think it's a product. I don't think it came from product. So I don't. It's a prioritization question. Yeah, and then I'm looking at the remaining ones here because we are approaching the end of the hour. So this was the migration, and then the seek editor question or the Visivik embedding is it's basically the problem of this widget using regular files again. And if we are not doing that elsewhere, then this will be putting files in a dead end, basically. So if we want to, if the goal with, so that again, this would be, I guess, a requirement for enabling media on our default content types, which is maybe a different checkpoint, because showing the media module on the UI, I'm not sure this is a requirement to necessarily support Visivik embedding, because if we don't use media by default, we don't put this field here, then so maybe we need a different checkpoint for using media by default.
But you can't physically put a media element in a WYSIWYG right now, right?
Yeah, there's no way. Yeah.
At least minimum.
Yeah. So something to replace that, and there's the parity with core fixes for file usage. I don't know if we fixed anything for file usage that needs parity. So I don't know that. The rendering one we already talked about. Yeah, and the media library is, it's a problem of when you hit this button, then you should be able to reuse something. And when you hit a button here somewhere, you should be able to reuse something, but that's all. That will start off as an experimental module, so I don't think that should be a requirement either for showing the module on the UI.
The UI is a huge downgrade because you showed with images, click file and re-upload. You can even re-upload something you already uploaded. That's kind of dumb. You shouldn't have to do that, but you can.
But that's solved by that.
What's that?
Well, that's solved by the first two issues. So if the first two issues are done, then the files and images will appear like they appeared before. They will use a different backend system to store them, and you could eventually reuse them once you have a UI to reuse them. But at least the user experience will be the same as before, but on a more up-to-date backend.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely makes sense to prioritize first, for sure. But the idea of using an entity reference field to select media is that's a huge downgrade in user experience.
It is, yeah. So, but we don't have a better way, I believe, right now. So this is going to be the two better widgets that will make it appear like a file widget and an image widget.
Where's the issue to make it so that it shows the thumbnail by default and not? I remember seeing that somewhere.
So that's part of this file field design update, right? Haha.
No. I think it's number 3 there. So users expect rendered media, not links.
I think it's in the display. That's the display mode thing.
Is that rendered media or an image? Because rendered media could have additional fields on it.
It could.
Yeah, this is a display mode thing. So this is the. So it's in part dealt with in the media library issue, and in part in the file field design update, which slightly modifies how it looks like. But I think it's in the media library thing because it requires a kind of mini media library on the page to be able to do that. So this has, I think, some screenshots somewhere. Maybe. Because you need the way to reorder them and the preview them, and they have different preview modes based on what type of media they are. Yeah, it doesn't see, yeah, this one. So you need to have like this mini media library within your entity form. So you pick from the media library, then you get them here in preview. You need a way to remove them and look at them and etc. So it's basically a mini media library inside your entity form.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
But even in the short term, again, I think just making the entity reference field render a thumbnail by default instead of nonsense would be good. And instead of an autocomplete field, if it was anything but an autocomplete field, like ideally a view that was the thumbnail plus the you know, the node title or sorry, media title or something better than what it currently is at.
Yeah, I think it was for the image field, whatever, but it's largely postponed on the file field. But it's the file field mostly does the job.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just saw that that's had an update in the last day, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
So I guess the order of issues in these in the must-have is still
still
correct.
relevant. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we are debating on migration integration, but the rest seems reasonable. And then there's this reference problem that we looked at before on this meeting as well, I think. So when you add a field and then you have these references, then there's image and media and file, and media is also an image and a file. So when you create something new, then it could get very confusing that, oh, I want to have an image, sure, but not that type of image, but this type of image.
Do you want a media image thing or an image thing?
Media image thing or an image thing. And we cannot really get rid of the image thing because like a user profile picture is obviously not media. You're not reusing that. That's an image. So we need a way to deal with that kind of stuff. So like this one is an image.
Well,
so
you could. I mean, there are communities where you select from prefab icons, like say your Netflix user icon or something. So not necessarily a dump, but yeah, if it's I agree that we should maybe make it an option. It's like do not.
Yeah, so there's definitely going to be cases where you actually need an image field and not a reusable media field. And so we cannot just get rid of the option to create image fields, but we would prioritize creating media fields over image and file fields. And that's a whole can of worms, and there's the issue for that in this list as well. This once media is enabled, having the file image and media reference fields all listed is confusing. UXGate.
That to me sounded like the most complex one to figure out.
Yeah.
So maybe the right answer isn't to keep the old image file entity type around, but to add a flag to the media. You know, is this reusable or is this going to be just on this piece of content? Although maybe that's too hard.
I was thinking along the same lines for that user picture example.
And that's
still make it media image things, but not show them in the browser.
I mean, this sort of sounds like with the paragraphs module, they decided that entity reference wasn't good enough. They needed entity reference revisions, and it might be that complicated to do what I just suggested.
Okay, well, at
So
least we refreshed our memory on on the complexity
all the
of
problems.
the media landscape. Yeah.
So
based on
I
that-
think what we.
No,
go ahead.
Gavin. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, so based on that, it sounds like we are in agreement that we need number 2, some way of getting a media thing into CK Editor. Now, I don't know, like, good point that if it's, if we fix those first 2 issues, which I think are in the list above, the ones about making file and image modules use media in the back end, so that would be transparent to users. Those definitely seem like they're adequately prioritized in that we would want those 2 things to happen first because they have pretty wide-ranging implications. Maybe that means we don't need to as much. I don't know though, because it's pretty bad if you can't. You know, that would force people to use an image field even when they wanted a YouTube field or something. You know what I mean? Like it's weird. But I imagine that's a hard problem to solve. Number 3 in that second list seems like we definitely need that. Number 4, I guess if we did number 3, we wouldn't necessarily need it. I don't know. And I can't see the rest of that list because it's off the page. But well, there we go. File usage. Things that was probably added by the not UX team. I think number 6 is legit. We should figure out a way to solve that because otherwise people are always going to make the wrong decision there. If that one doesn't have an agreed upon spec yet, that seems like something our team could work on. Number 8, we just explicitly postponed, so hopefully we won't have to deal with that one at all. The rest of these don't sound like stuff we can really do much about.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the things we could concentrate on are keep it as an entity reference. How can we make the entity reference experience less onerous than it currently is if we don't do a media library, at least right away. Second would be handle the WYSIWYG editor stuff. You know, is it acceptable to only ship with image and file like we always have and have CK editor only deal with image and file? And then if you do fancier media types, then that just becomes something you can't embed in your posts separately. You know, that's an option. And then I think the third thing is working out the selection box when people are creating fields so that that is less confusing and people make the right choices. But apart from that, I don't see much that we can do to.
Also just render the entity properly and the title.
I'm about the specific editor. There is a contrib module for embedding media items. I was having a look at that and to see whether that's something that could be more easily here. Because having a WYSIWYG editor that, but then doesn't have the that you expect, so kind of. So I think the CK editor will need to be checked.
Most of that cut out for me. Sorry, I didn't hear.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't make that out.
Did I just shock everybody, or?
No, we understand. We understood less than half of what you said because it cut out, so we couldn't get
All right.
the gist.
I think as long as the WYSIWYG editor has a field where you can add images, that somehow works, because otherwise you have a really confusing user experience. Contrib module that called, I think, embed. Let's see whether that's something that could be brought into media. That's the whole thing with having the auto-complete field as it is at the bottom of the form.
Okay. Can you post a link to the module in chat?
How to find the module name.
Okay, nothing. Lots to talk about if we want, but I guess this is good enough for refreshing our memory and identifying where we can actually help. I guess the media team is not that super active at the moment. I think most of the people are otherwise occupied. I don't know. Is there much code being moved lately? Do you know, Gabor or Angie?
I think, well, this team has always been a volunteer-driven team. Like, it doesn't have a company behind it that's driving this stuff. They have always been drastically, like, unfunded. So one of the biggest things, and it, it's like they traditionally ask for, some kind of donations to help developers focus on this instead of building Drupal 7 sites or whatever it is that they're spending their time doing, and we have not had a lot of success. There's a lot of people who want this. It's like the #1 ranked feature in the big ass survey we spent around to everybody. People don't seem to be either willing or able to put money behind what they want to see happen. Has been required then to take paying jobs so they can, eat, which is fair enough. Yeah. And then this tends to get stalled out. So at any rate, that's like probably the biggest thing that this team needs is of course some of the key contributors who donate a lot of time to this to have focused, dedicated time that they can do so that it doesn't have to become a nights and weekends project. So that's probably the first thing. I know that the team's very committed to seeing it happen, so they are picking away at it as they can, but it is a huge undertaking, as you've seen.
Yes.
So I think more help on the development side of things, reviews, UX guidance as well. Although I don't know that I see a lot we can offer there, but obviously if there is stuff we should there if they're blocked on any usability or product manager review stuff. But it seems like they're mostly blocked with like someone just needs to do the work. And yeah, that's been challenging so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's some areas where there's UX feedback useful, like the reference fields area, where it's basically up to how we define how it should work, and then people can so like people are not working in vain of implementing some idea that will not fly in terms of UX. That's a definite area.
Yes.
That may not be so complex to implement, but this very delicate in terms of UX. There's a whole media library that's very complex to implement as well.
Yeah, I need some other stuff to be in place, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh, on that happy note.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks everyone for coming. Yeah, and let's keep an eye on these.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a
Bye.
nice
Next
week.
time.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.